They say the past is a foreign country, but to me, it's more like an old vinyl record, a little scratchy, worn at the edges, but still capable of playing the same song if you let the needle drop in the right place. And my song? It began with a girl named Emily Carter and a world that didn't think we should belong to each other. When I think back to those early days, I don't picture the shouting, the long nights, the moments when my chest ached like someone had reached inside and twisted my heart. I picture sunlight, sticky Georgia sunlight, spilling through the windows of Frank's diner, bouncing off her hair, turning her into something half real, half-dreamed. The summer of 2011, I was 23. I worked construction during the day, pouring concrete, swinging hammers, and baking in the kind of heat that left you too tired to think straight by the time you clocked out. At night, I took drafting classes at the community college. My hands were always dry and cracked, my jeans stained in permanent grays and browns from cement dust, and my dreams of becoming an architect felt as far away as the moon. But I had my mama's stubborn streak, and that was worth something. Frank's Diner was my hideaway, a place that smelled like home even though I'd never lived there. It was the kind of joint where the booth squeaked when you slid in, where sweet tea came in mason jars, and where everyone got called Hun, whether you were a regular or just passing through. A handwritten menu hung on the wall in smudged chalk, and there was always a plate of fresh pecan pie cooling behind the counter. That day, the sun had been merciless, the air thick enough to chew. I pushed open the door to Frank's and let the blessed cold of the AC wash over me. The place was nearly full, the air buzzing with conversation and the occasional sizzle from the grill. The smell of fried catfish, collard greens, and cornbread wrapped around me like a welcome blanket, and that's when I saw her. Emily was sitting alone at the booth by the front window. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight like it had been waiting all day just for her to show up. She had a small leather notebook open in front of her and was writing, her pen moving quick and sure. Her lips were pursed slightly, her eyes narrowed in concentration, like she was balancing somewhere between thought and dream. She didn't look like someone who belonged in Frank's, and I don't mean that in a bad way. She had the kind of clean, easy polish you usually saw in the coffee shops near the university, the kind that charged $5 for a latte and played indie music I couldn't name. But there she was, in a place where coffee came in chipped white mugs and nobody gave a damn if the sugar jar lid didn't match. I didn't stop to think. Maybe it was because every other booth was full. Maybe it was because something about her made the room feel different. Or maybe it was just one of those gut instincts I've learned never to ignore. Mind if I sit here? I asked, nodding toward the seat across from her. She looked up, startled for just a heartbeat, and then she smiled. It wasn't a big smile. More like one of those small, cautious ones you give a stranger before you decide if they're safe. "Sure," she said, gesturing toward the seat. Her voice had this light, lilting quality to it. She didn't rush her words, but she also didn't hang on to them like she was afraid to let them go. We started with small talk, the heat wave, Atlanta traffic, how the ceiling fan above us sounded like it was one hard breeze away from giving up entirely. When she asked what I did for work, I told her about construction. Her eyes lit up in a way I didn't expect. "So you build things," she said, leaning forward slightly. "That's kind of romantic," I laughed. "Most folks don't put concrete and romance in the same sentence." "Well," she said, her smile deepening, "most folks are boring." That made me grin. When I asked about her, she told me she was studying journalism at Georgia State. The way she talked about writing, like it was oxygen, like it was how she made sense of the world, pulled me in. She wanted to tell stories that mattered, the kind people try to ignore. That line stayed with me. I didn't know then just how much it would matter to her, to me, to us. Halfway through our conversation, Ruby, the waitress who'd been working at Frank's since before I was born, came over with 2 menus. "What can I get y'all?" she asked, looking between us with that half smirk she saved for customers she thought might be on a date. Emily glanced at me, waiting. I ordered the fried catfish with hush puppies. She went for the grilled chicken. Sandwich. Ruby scribbled the orders down and shuffled off. We talked until our food came. The conversation easy but not shallow. She told me about growing up in a small town outside Savannah, about her love for baseball despite not knowing all the rules, about her fear of thunderstorms and her addiction to black coffee. I told her about my mama's cornbread, my dream of designing buildings that would still be standing 50 years from now, and the time I accidentally dropped a cinder block on my own foot. When Ruby brought the plates, Emily thanked her like she'd just been handed gold. That stuck with me, the way she made people feel like they mattered, even when they were just doing their job. We lingered over lunch. The diner slowly emptied as the afternoon crowd thinned. At one point, a man in a ball cap at the counter glanced our way, did a double take, and then looked back at his coffee like it had suddenly become the most interesting thing in the room. I'd seen that look before. I didn't need to guess what it meant, but I didn't say anything. Not yet dark by the time I walked her to her car. The sun was starting to dip, throwing long shadows across the cracked pavement. She turned to me, holding her notebook close to her chest. "I'm glad you sat down," she said. "Me too," I replied, and I meant it more than I could explain. She got into her car, and I stood there for a moment, watching her drive away, feeling like something important had just happened, even if I couldn't name it yet. The morning after meeting Emily, I woke before my alarm. That almost never happened. Normally, I'd slap the snooze button at least twice, bargaining for 5 more minutes that turned into 15. But that day, the second my eyes opened, my mind was already replaying yesterday. Sunlight spilling through the diner windows, catching in her hair like it had been waiting there just for her. The sound of her laugh spilling soft and easy into the space between us. I told myself it was nothing, just another conversation. I'd met plenty of people before. But lying there in the dim blue light of my bedroom, I felt that restless energy in my chest, the kind you get when you're standing on the edge of something new. The apartment was still. Terrence's bedroom door was shut, his deep, slow breathing faint through the wall. He'd worked another night shift at the freight yard, hauling crates until sunrise. He was the kind of guy you didn't wake unless you were ready to duck a flying shoe. The floorboards creaked as I crossed to the kitchen, grabbed my thermos, and poured in the last of the coffee from yesterday. It was bitter and lukewarm, but it was something. By the time I pulled up to the job site, the foreman's voice was already bouncing off the steel skeleton of the building. "Let's move, let's move," he barked. We were laying rebar for the apartment complex foundation, work that left you smelling like rust and concrete dust by lunch. I should have been focused on the spacing, making sure the rods lined up with the blueprint. Instead, my mind kept drifting back to a booth at Frank's. I wondered if she'd be there again, if she'd smile the same way she did yesterday, if she'd even remember my name. "Hey, Romeo," Luce's voice snapped me back. He was lugging a bucket of tools, his grin wide. "You gonna stand there thinking about your prom date, or you gonna give me a hand before I drop this?" I grabbed the other handle. "Sorry, man. Long night." "Yeah? Or long daydream? You've got that look." "What look?" "The I just met somebody look." I didn't answer, but my smirk must have given me away because he chuckled and shook his head. The day dragged, every task stretching like it was happening in slow motion. When the whistle blew, most of the crew scattered for the parking lot. Normally, I'd be right there with them, already thinking about a cold beer. But instead of heading home, I took a left. Frank's diner wasn't far. The neon sign out front flickered like it was tired but too stubborn to quit. I told myself, I just wanted dinner. That it had nothing to do with a slim chance Emily might be there again. But the second the bell over the door jingled, my eyes swept the room. She wasn't there. I slid into a booth anyway, ordered a cheeseburger from Ruby, and tried to play it cool. Halfway through my fries, the door opened again. And there she was. Emily spotted me instantly, her face lighting up just enough to feel like it was meant for me. "Marcus," she said, stepping closer. "Fancy seeing you here. I could say the same to you. Mind if I join? Be my guest." We talked about everything and nothing, her roommate Claire, my friend Louise. The way Ruby seemed to have an opinion on every customer who walked in. She told me she was a journalism major, that she liked to write stories about real people because, in her words, they're more interesting than politicians and movie stars. While she spoke, I noticed a couple at the next table watching. "U.S." The woman whispered something into the man's ear, and his jaw tightened. They weren't smiling. Emily didn't acknowledge it, or maybe she was pretending not to see. I knew the look, the narrowed eyes, the unspoken question. Why's she with him? We finished our meal and walked outside into the warm evening air. She asked if I'd like to do this again. I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I would. We said goodnight, and I headed home, still feeling her smile in my chest. Terrence was on the couch when I walked in. Feet up, a beer in hand, a basketball game flickering on the TV. "You're out late for a work night," he said without looking away from the screen. "Stop for dinner." "Dinner, huh?" He smirked. "You mean her?" I froze halfway. "To the fridge." "What do you mean, her?" He finally looked at me. "Luce texted me, said you were all spaced out today. Said it looked like you had your head somewhere else. And judging by your face right now, I'm guessing it was sitting across from you at Frank's." I shook my head but couldn't hide the grin. "Her name's Emily." Terrence took a slow sip. "Emily, and I'm guessing she's white?" I set the beer down harder than I meant to. "Yeah, so what?" He raised both hands. "Relax. Man, I'm just saying. This town isn't exactly—" He stopped, searching for the right word. "Forgiving. I know. You think you know. But people look at you sideways now. Try dating across that line. They'll have something to say, might not say it to your face, but you'll feel it." I thought about the couple in the diner. "I can handle it." Terrence gave me that look, part skepticism, part brotherly concern. "Just be careful." I didn't hear this part until later, but that same night, Emily had walked into her apartment to find Claire on the couch, surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee cups. "You're late," Claire said without looking. "Up, was at Frank's," Emily said. "With who?" "Marcus." Claire's eyes flicked up, curious. "Marcus?" Emily smiled. "The guy I met yesterday, works construction. He's—" She paused, choosing her words. "Really easy to talk to." Claire's brows lifted. "Is he black?" Emily froze for half a second, caught off guard. "Yeah, why?" Claire shrugged, pretending to go back to her textbook. "No reason, just, you know how some people are around here." Emily's voice cooled. "I know, and I don't care." 2 evenings later, Emily and I grabbed coffee from a little shop downtown. It was one of those places with exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling, trying a little too hard to be hip. We were sitting by the window, laughing about a playlist the barista had on, half old country, half 90s R&B, when a man in a suit walked in. He glanced at us as he passed. I recognized that glance. The slow up and down, the lingering look at our hands on the table, the faint narrowing of his eyes. Emily must have felt it too, because her laughter faded. Neither of us said anything for a minute. Then she leaned in, her voice low. "Does it ever bother you, the looks?" I met her eyes. "It used to. Now I just get tired of it. But I'm not gonna let it decide who I sit with, or who I see." Her smile returned, faint but real. "Good, me neither." The Saturday after Emily and I had our second coffee date, the town was buzzing about the Pine Grove Summer Fair. It was one of those small-town events that popped up in Georgia every year without fail, Rows of food trucks lined along the old baseball field, a Ferris wheel with flickering lights, kids running wild with snow cones, and the faint hum of a country band playing covers from a plywood stage. I'd been going to that fair since I was a kid. My mama used to bring me, and my sisters give us $10 each and tell us not to spend it all on funnel cake. It smelled like grease, kettle corn, and the sweet tang of barbecue smoke, all wrapped in thick summer air that clung to you like syrup. Emily had never been. When I suggested it over the phone, she'd hesitated for a second, not because she didn't want to go, but because she knew it meant we'd be out together, in public, in broad daylight. No hiding in quiet corners of Frank's Diner or dim coffee shops. Still, she said yes. And when I pulled up outside her apartment, she came down the steps wearing denim shorts, a white tank top, and a pair of red Converse that looked like they'd walked straight out of a 90s music video. "You're staring," she teased as she slid into the passenger seat. "Just taking inventory," I said. "So I know exactly how good I've got it." The fairgrounds were packed when we arrived. I paid the parking guy, a retired vet who recognized me from high school football, and we started toward the entrance. Emily's hand brushed mine. Once, twice, and then she slid her fingers between mine without a word. That small gesture sent a warm thrum through my chest. It should have stayed perfect. We wandered past booths selling handmade leather belts, racks of vintage vinyl, and a woman painting children's faces with glitter and rainbows. Emily wanted to try a fried Oreo, so I bought us a paper tray of them, powdered sugar floating up like smoke as we walked. She laughed when the sugar stuck to my shirt and brushed it off with her fingertips. It felt easy. We ended up by the ring toss where I blew 3 tries in a row. Emily stepped up, handed the man 2 tickets, and like something out of a corny rom-com, landed the bottle on her first throw. She picked a stuffed armadillo from the prize rack and handed it to me. "For your truck dashboard," she said. With a smirk, we were just about to head toward the Ferris wheel when it happened. A group of men, mid-30s, ball caps pulled low, came walking past. One of them slowed, looked at us, then smirked at his friends before turning back to me. "Didn't think brothers shop for blondes out here," he said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. It was like the whole noise of the fair dimmed. For half a second, my chest tightened, my jaw locked, but I didn't say anything. Emily stiffened beside me. Another one chimed in, eyes flicking over Emily like she was property. "Careful, man, that type comes with family complications." There. Laughter was short, mean, and sharp. Emily's hand tightened around mine. I could feel her pulse racing, and I knew mine was doing the same. 100 comebacks buzzed in my head, but I also knew exactly how things could go if I took the bait in a public place, surrounded by strangers, with her standing beside me. "Keep walking," I muttered, mostly to myself. The first man grinned, like he'd won something, and they moved on, their voices fading into the crowd. I could feel Emily watching me, her brow furrowed. "Marcus, it's fine," I said, though my voice didn't sound like me. "It's not fine." She stepped in front of me, forcing me to stop. Her eyes were sharp now, a little glassy. "You shouldn't have to swallow that." "I shouldn't have to hear it, but I'm not. I'm not going to let them scare me off." I wanted to pull her close right then, but we were still in the middle of the fair. Instead, I took a slow breath, forced my shoulders to loosen, and gave her the best half smile I could manage. "They didn't scare me," I said. "Just reminded me of the world we're walking into." The rest of the day wasn't ruined, but it wasn't the same either. The laughter came back in pieces, at the Ferris wheel, when she screamed at the top, at the dunk tank, when a kid managed to knock the mayor into the water. But every so often, I'd catch her glancing over her shoulder, and I knew we were both thinking about those men. When I dropped her off that evening, she lingered at the passenger door, one hand resting on the roof of the truck. "Marcus?" "Yeah?" She hesitated, then said, "We're going to be okay, right?" I didn't answer right away. The truth was, I didn't know yet. But I could tell her what I did know. We'll be us, I said. And we'll see if the world can handle it. She smiled, small but real, and leaned in to kiss me. As I drove away, the stuffed armadillo sat on my dashboard, grinning like it knew the road ahead was going to get a whole lot bumpier. The first time Emily mentioned her parents, she did it casually, like she was testing the water. We were sitting in her apartment, a vinyl record spinning low in the background, her legs draped across my lap. They're having a barbecue next weekend, she said. Just family and a couple of neighbors. My dad does this thing with ribs. She stopped there, glanced at me, and I saw the hesitation flicker. You want me to come, I guessed. I do, she said slowly. But I also don't want it to be weird. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Marcus, they've never met anyone I've dated who wasn't white. I thought about that for a beat. I'd been through enough situations to know the different flavors of that statement. Sometimes it meant curiosity. Sometimes suspicion. Sometimes worse. Then I guess we'll give them a first, I said, smiling like I meant it. The day of the barbecue. The sky was perfect, blue and wide, dotted with lazy summer clouds. I pulled up to a neat, single-story house on the edge of town, the kind with a white painted porch swing and an American flag hanging by the front steps. The smell of smoked meat rolled through the air before I even knocked. Emily opened the door before I could raise my hand. She was barefoot, wearing a sundress with tiny yellow flowers, her hair pulled back loose. She looked relieved to see me, which made me wonder how much she'd been bracing herself. Inside, her mom greeted me first, a short woman with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She shook my hand like she was trying to figure out what I felt like. Marcus, she said, Emily's told us some about you. Only good things, I hope, I said. She gave a polite little laugh and led us toward the backyard. Her dad was out by the grill, tongs in one hand, a beer in the other. Tall, sun-reddened skin, a ball cap that had seen better days. He looked me up and down, then nodded once. Marcus, he said. No handshake, no smile. Sir, I replied. The yard was already filling up. Two of Emily's cousins were tossing a football. An older man, I assumed, was her uncle, was setting out plates on a picnic table. Somewhere behind me, a woman asked Emily in a stage whisper, "Is this him?" We sat down for food after the blessing. Her dad's ribs were good, I'll give him that. Tender, smoky, falling right off the bone. But the conversation had a texture to it. So Marcus, her dad said halfway through the meal, you grow up around here? Yes, sir, I said. Born and raised. My mama still lives on Birch Street. He nodded. And your folks? What do they do? My mom's a nurse. Dad passed when I was 12. Sorry to hear that, he said, and I almost thought I saw a flicker of real sympathy. But it passed quick. And you're, what, working at the auto shop now? Yes, sir. Been there 5 years. Emily jumped in then, her voice a little sharper than before. Marcus is one of the best mechanics in the county. Everyone takes their car to him. Her dad chewed, swallowed, and said, like that was the end of it. Later, while the men were talking near the grill, one of Emily's cousins, a wiry guy with mirrored sunglasses, sidled up to me. So, he said, smirking, you're the big scandal, huh? I raised an eyebrow. Scandal? Man, you know how it is. Small towns, people talk. Never thought I'd see Emily bringing home someone like you. I stared at him for a second, debating if he wanted a laugh or a fight. Finally, I said, guess you need to get out more. He chuckled, but there was an edge to it. Just saying, hope you're ready for all the noise. Folks here got long memories. I didn't bother answering. I just walked away. When it was finally over, Emily and I slipped out to my truck. The moment we shut the doors, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all day. I'm sorry, she said. You don't have to apologize for your family. I do when they act like that, she said. My dad, he's not a bad person, Marcus, but he's stuck in his ways. And my cousin's just a jerk. I looked at her, and I could tell she was torn, embarrassed, angry, maybe even ashamed. They don't scare me, I said quietly. But I'm not gonna pretend I didn't hear it. Her hand found mine on the gear shift. I'll handle it, she said. I didn't know exactly what she meant by that, but I nodded. The Monday after the barbecue, I was at the shop changing brake pads when Travis, a guy I'd worked with for years, leaned against the lift and said, "So, you and Emily Bennett, huh?" I didn't look up. News travels fast. He shrugged. Small town. You two were at the fair. Then her dad's cookout. Folks are talking. Let 'em. Travis hesitated. You know it's not all friendly talk, right? I stopped working and met his eyes. You telling me something I don't already know? He held up his hands. Hey, I'm just saying. I've seen this before. Sometimes it gets messy. That week, Emily told me her phone had been buzzing nonstop. Not from strangers, from friends. One text read, "You're really doing this? You know what people are saying." Another, "He seems nice, but you're making it harder on yourself." She laughed them off when she told me, but I could see the dent they made. Things got worse when I ran into Corey, a friend I'd known since high school, outside the gas station. "Man, you serious about this girl?" He asked. "I am," he sighed. "Then I hope you're ready. It's not just words, Marcus. Some people around here, they'll try to make you pay for stepping out of line." Out of line? I repeated. "You know what I mean," he said. And he wouldn't meet my eyes. Emily and I had our first real fight that Friday. We were sitting in her kitchen, a pizza between us, when I mentioned Corey's warning. She froze, then said, "So what? Are you saying we should quit before it gets harder?" "That's not what I'm saying." "It sounds like it." I leaned back, frustrated. "I'm saying maybe we need to decide how we're gonna handle it. All of it. The stares, the comments, the hate," she finished. "Yeah." She shook her head. "I don't want to handle it, Marcus. I want to ignore it. Live our life like they don't matter." "They do matter when they can make our life hell," I said. Her eyes softened then, but she was still angry. "I'm not scared." "Are you?" I didn't answer right away. Finally I said, "No, but I'm not stupid either." We didn't talk much for the rest of the night. But when I left, she followed me to the door, slipped her arms around my waist, and whispered, "We'll be okay." I held her close, hoping she was right, because deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The first sign that things were shifting from whispers to action came on a Wednesday morning. I was unlocking the shop, coffee in hand, when I noticed the chalk scrawl across the garage door, "Stay with your own." The letters were thick, hurried, and dripping faint streaks where the rain had hit overnight. I stood there for a second, my jaw tightening. It wasn't the worst thing someone could have written, but it was enough. The first blow wasn't always the hardest. Sometimes it was just the one that let you know the fight had started. Inside, I kept my voice calm when Travis walked in behind me. "You see this?" I asked. He glanced at the door, muttered a curse, then looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should apologize or pretend it wasn't there. "Want me to grab a hose?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'll take care of it." I scrubbed it off before we opened, but the words stuck in my head all day like grit in a wound. That night, Emily came by the shop to bring me dinner, burgers and fries from the place we both liked. I almost didn't tell her, but then I figured she'd hear it from someone else. "They wrote on the garage door," I said, handing her a wrench so I could get the oil filter off the Ford I was working on. Her brow furrowed. "What did it say?" I told her. She stared at me for a long moment, then set the food down hard on the workbench. "This is exactly what I meant when I said I wasn't scared," she said. "I'm not going to let them think they can bully us." "They already think they can," I said. "But that's not the point. The point is, they're willing to show it." She crossed her arms. So what are you going to do? I wiped my hands on a rag. Keep going to work. Keep seeing you. Live my life. Her face softened, but her eyes were still fierce. Good. Because I'll be damned if we let them win. By Friday, it was all over town. Some people pretended not to know. Others dropped comments like they were fishing for my reaction. Lot of bad handwriting in this town. One customer said with a smirk, I just fixed his brakes and sent him on his way. On Saturday, Emily suggested we go to the harvest fair. I wasn't crazy about the idea. Half the town would be there, and the other half would hear about it. But she wanted normal dots, so we went. We walked hand in hand past the pie contest tables, the Ferris wheel, the booths selling kettle corn and homemade soap. People stared. Some openly, some from the corner of their eye. One woman I'd gone to school with looked right at me and then turned her back without a word. Emily squeezed my hand tighter. Then, as we passed the hayride line, a man in his 40s, beer in hand, face ruddy from the sun, called out, Didn't know they let just anybody in here now. I stopped walking. So did Emily. What did you say? I asked. He grinned, like this was the reaction he wanted. You heard me. Emily pulled on my arm. Marcus, don't. But it was. Too late. I took a step toward him. You want to repeat it to my face? I asked. His grin faltered, but only for a second. Just saying what everyone's thinking. I could feel my pulse in my temples. I wasn't scared. I was past that. But I knew exactly how this scene could end if I wasn't careful. Emily stepped between us, her voice cold. Then maybe everyone needs to start thinking for themselves. She didn't wait for him to answer, just pulled me away before I did something I couldn't take back. That night, as we lay in her bed, she whispered, I hate them. I kissed her hair. Don't waste your hate on people like that. But I didn't tell her the truth, that some part of me was starting to hate too. The escalation came 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday night. I'd just finished locking up the shop when I saw the headlights behind my truck. They stayed there, too close. As I pulled onto the road. At first, I thought maybe it was someone I knew. Small town, late night. But when I turned onto Birch Street, they turned too. When I slowed, they slowed. The truck followed me for almost a mile before peeling off down a side road. I didn't see a license plate. Just the shape of it. Big, lifted, with a dented bumper. I told Emily about it the next day. They were probably just messing with you, she said. But I could see the worry in her eyes. Messing can turn into more. I said. We started locking our doors religiously, even in the middle of the day. I noticed things I hadn't before. The same car parked across from Emily's apartment twice in 1 week. The way the chatter at the diner would drop when we walked in. Then someone keyed my truck. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I came out of the grocery store and saw the long, jagged scratch running the length of the driver's side door. I stood there for a while, just looking at it. Emily showed up 10 minutes later, out of breath from running across the lot. Oh my God, she said, her hand covering her mouth. Marcus. I shook my head. This is nothing. They want me to blow up. I'm not giving them the satisfaction. But that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and felt something in me harden. The next week, Emily's boss called her into the office. They've been getting phone calls, she told me later, her voice shaking. Anonymous ones. People saying I shouldn't be working there. That I'm making the company look bad. What did your boss say? She said she doesn't agree with them, but she wanted to give me a heads up. I could see the toll it was taking on her. The way she hesitated before posting photos of us online now. The way she glanced over her shoulder in parking lots. The breaking point came at the diner. We were having lunch. Just burgers and coffee, like always, when a man at the counter muttered something as we passed. I didn't hear all of it, but I caught the word trash. I stopped. You want to say that again? The man turned, a slow, deliberate move. I said, this town's going to hell when people like you think you can just I don't even remember standing up. I just remember Emily's hand on my chest pushing me back. "Let's go," she said, her voice tight. I let her pull me. Outside. My hands were shaking, and not from fear. That night I told her, "If they want to fight, I'm done pretending we can hide from it." She looked at me for a long time. "Then I guess we fight." And I knew, whatever happened next, the line had been crossed. The storm came from a direction I didn't expect. It was a Thursday night. I was closing the shop when Travis walked in, late, unshaven, smelling like beer. That wasn't unusual for him after hours, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "You good?" I asked, tossing the rag on the bench. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I need to tell you something." I leaned on the counter. "All right." He looked like he was weighing whether to say it at all. "I was at Jake's last night. You know, the bar." "Yeah," I said, cautious now. "There were a couple of guys there. Tucker and some of his crew. They were talking about you. About Emily, saying you think you're better than everyone, that you're pushing your luck." I didn't move, just watched him. And I didn't say anything," he swallowed. "Hell, I even laughed at one of their jokes." The words sat in the air between us. Heavy, ugly. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because," he sighed, "they're planning something. Don't know what exactly, but Tucker said you're gonna learn your place soon." Something in my chest tightened. "And you just stood there." "I know," he said, eyes on the floor. "I'm sorry, man. I was drunk." "I know," I said, my voice flat. "You were sober enough to make a choice." He winced. "I came here to warn you." "You came here to clear your conscience," I said. "That's different." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Finally, he turned and walked out without another word. That night I sat in Emily's apartment and told her what happened. She paced, hands running through her hair. "So what does that mean? Are they going to come after you?" "US? I don't know," I said. "But if Travis is telling the truth, they're past the talking stage." She stopped pacing. "We need to tell someone." "Like who?" I asked. "The sheriff?" Half his cousins were probably at that bar. Her shoulders slumped. "So what do? We stay alert, and we don't back down." She came over and sat beside me. "Marcus, if anything happens to you," I took her hand. "Nothing's going to happen to me." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. The next day, the first sign came, a brick through the shop window. No note, no message, just a jagged hole and a scatter of glass across the floor. I swept it up in silence. The attack came 2 nights later. Emily and I were leaving the diner after dinner. She'd insisted we go out, said we couldn't let them dictate our lives. The air was cool, the parking lot mostly empty. That's when I heard the engine. Big, loud, coming fast. I turned just in time to see the lifted truck swing into the lot, headlights blazing. It roared toward us, swerving at the last second, spraying gravel at our legs. I pulled Emily behind me, heart pounding. The truck skidded to a stop, and I could make out 3 figures inside. The driver leaned out the window. "Tucker." "Of course. Evening, Marcus," he drawled. "Out with your little girlfriend?" I stepped forward. "You've got something to say it to my face." He grinned, mean and lazy. "I just said it." The guy in the passenger seat laughed. The third one, younger, maybe a cousin, just stared. I could feel Emily's hand clutching my arm. "Marcus, let's go," she whispered. I didn't move. "You're real brave in a truck with your buddies." Tucker's smile vanished. "You think you belong here? You don't. And if you don't get that through your head, maybe we'll help you along." The truck lurched forward, stopping inches from my knees. That's when I realized they weren't just trying to scare me. They were testing how far they could go. I stepped back, pulling Emily with me. "Go home, Tucker. Before you do something you can't undo." For a moment, no one moved. Then Tucker spat out the window and gunned the engine, tires squealing as they tore out of the lot. Emily was shaking as we got in my truck. "They're not going to stop," she said. "I know." "Then what are we going to do?" I started the engine. "We fight back our way." The next morning, I called a friend in the city, a lawyer, told him everything. He said we needed documentation, evidence, witnesses if possible, sunlights. "The best disinfectant," he told me. "You put this out in the open, it's harder for them to hide." I didn't like the idea of dragging Emily into a bigger spotlight, but we didn't have many options left. 2 weeks later, we made our stand. Emily and I agreed to go public. A local reporter who'd been covering small-town politics for years agreed to interview us. She wasn't afraid to stir trouble when trouble needed stirring. The article ran on a Wednesday. Full names. Full story. Even mentioned Tucker and his friends, though it didn't outright accuse them. By Friday, the whole town was talking. Half the comments were supportive, the other half not so much, but something shifted. The people who'd been quietly on our side started speaking up. A couple of business owners put signs in their windows. "Nitrogen monoxide place for hate here." A church invited us to speak. One of Emily's co-workers told her she admired her courage. The backlash didn't disappear. Tucker still glared at me when we crossed paths, and I still felt eyes on my back in the grocery store. But it didn't have the same weight. It was like they'd lost some of their power. The real turning point came one Saturday at the Harvest Fair, the same place we'd faced those first public stares months ago. Emily and I walked hand in hand through the crowd. People looked, but this time some of them smiled, nodded, even said hello. Then, out of nowhere, an older man I didn't recognize stepped in front of us. "You're Marcus?" he asked. I nodded, cautious. He stuck out his hand. "Name's Hank. Just wanted to say, takes guts to do what you're doing. This town needs more of it." I shook his hand. Emily smiled. That night, as we sat on her porch watching the sun set, Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "We made it," she whispered. Kissed her hair. "We're still making it." And for the first time in months, I believed it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.